All right, strap yourselves in because we're diving deep into a show that, well, it kind of predicted the future, didn't it?
In more ways than one, I'd say.
The X-Files, folks. And we've got these excerpts from the X-Files 1993.pdf, juicy stuff.
Oh, we're going beyond the surface here.
This isn't just a rewatch party.
Yeah.
This is about how the X-Files became like this cultural touchstone.
Absolutely, and why it's still so relevant even all these years later.
It's crazy. It premiered in 93, right?
Yep, right on the cusp of his whole shift in, well, everything.
Like culturally, technologically.
All of it. And the X-Files captured that feeling of, I don't know, paranoia, like something was just beneath the surface.
Okay, so for anyone who maybe missed the 90s, what is the X-Files actually about?
The core. 2 FBI agents. Fox Mulder, he's the believer.
Right, the one who wants to believe.
And then Dana Scully, the skeptic.
The voice of reason? Sort of.
They get thrown into these unsolved cases, the X-Files, paranormal stuff, government cover-ups, you name it.
It was a monster of the week kind of deal, right?
But so much more than that.
It had that procedural element, but mixed with horror, mystery. This document talks about how much attention they paid to the look of the show.
Oh, the visuals were deliberate, completely intentional. It's part of why it felt so unsettling. They used this dark, almost menacing lighting.
Not your typical Top Show, that's for sure.
No, it amplified that unease, that sense that things weren't quite right.
Smart. Really smart. Yeah. So it wasn't just what you saw, it was how it made you feel.
Exactly. And that took a village. Writers, directors, crew, actors. This document talks about the whole machine.
The collaborative process, right? Everyone contributed to that distinct style.
From the directors of photography like Thomas Del Ruth, later John S. Bartley, to the writers, the set designers. Everyone.
Yeah, mentions all that pre-production stuff, script writing, casting, set construction, scouting location.
Oh, tons of prep. And then filming, which is described here as, get this, organized chaos.
I can only imagine.
Structured, yes, but still this creative whirlwind. Multiple camera angles, a very specific system, but always this energy on set.
Okay, let's talk episodes. Each season had these key moments, Rice. But season 1... what set the stage for everything that came after?
Well, season 1 was all about laying that foundation, you know, that Mulder and Scully dynamic.
That push and pull.
Exactly. And the pilot episode, huge. It introduces these themes that become central. Soul transference, reincarnation.
Wait, hold on. Soul transference and reincarnation in 1993 on primetime TV.
Wild, right. But it speaks to something bigger. This was the rise of the New Age movement, a fascination with the spiritual, the unexplained.
So they were tapping into something real, something cultural that was already happening.
Oh, absolutely. The X-Files wasn't just entertainment. It was a reflection of those anxieties, those bigger conversations about what's out there.
And of course, we can't forget the cigarette-smoking man.
Yeah.
He pops up in season 1, right?
Oh, yeah. He's there from the beginning, lurking in the shadows.
The ultimate shadowy figure.
He embodies that whole X-Files vibe. Government secrets, that abuse of power. Can you trust anyone?
And then season 2 gets really personal.
Right. It's when Scully's abducted.
Which, I mean, talk about reflecting real life.
Yeah.
Gillian Anderson was pregnant in real life.
They wrote it into the story. But it wasn't just a clever plot device. It changed everything.
Scully, the skeptic, is suddenly living this nightmare. It's not just a case anymore. It's personal.
And then season 3, they got even more daring, started playing with the format, pushing boundaries.
Jose Chung's From Outer Space comes to mind.
Exactly. Metafiction at its finest. A commentary on storytelling itself. The X-Files wasn't afraid to mess with our heads a little.
No, they weren't. So we've got this mythology building, these anxieties, these deep themes. But the X-Files wasn't just a TV show, was it? This document talks about spin-offs, films, all this other media.
It became this sprawling franchise. 2 major films, one in 98, another in 2008.
I remember that first film being huge.
A continuation of the series, picking up those threads. The second one, maybe not as successful.
But still, it shows the staying power, right? People wanted more.
They did, and it wasn't just the films. Video games, comic books, all of it.
It's like they created this whole world you could step into.
And each piece added another layer. The video games, for example, let you become Mulder and Scully, investigate your own X-Files.
And the comics, they explored corners of that universe that maybe the show didn't have time for.
It's fascinating. And it's worth noting that the X-Files was early to grasp the power of the internet to connect with fans.
Oh, right. Like before social media.
Way before. They were using online forums, dedicated websites. Fans could dissect episodes, share theories.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking.
It's like the blueprint for how we engage with shows today.
Absolutely. All those fan theories, those online communities, they have roots in what the X-Files was doing.
Okay, before we jump ahead, there's something in here that caught my eye. It mentions two shows, Kolchak, The Night Stalker and The Twilight Zone, as influences on the X-Files. What's the connection?
Ah, great question. Kolchak. That was back in the 70s. It was about this reporter investigating weird, often supernatural events.
So like a proto-Mulder?
Exactly. And The Twilight Zone. Well, that's the granddaddy of all shows that explore the strange, the unexplained, things that make you question reality.
Right. It was all about that twist ending, that what if.
Chris Carter, the creator of The X-Files, he took inspiration from those shows, but he blended them with police procedurals, government conspiracies. He made it something new.
So you have those spooky, unsettling elements, but grounded in a world that feels real.
And that's what made it work. It was familiar, but also unsettlingly new. It felt possible.
Right. And that blend is what made it groundbreaking, because it wasn't just monsters.
No, it was about the investigation,
Yeah.
the relentless pursuit of truth, even when it was elusive, even dangerous.
And that resonates so much today, doesn't it? In this world of information overload, misinformation, we're always questioning what's real.
You're right. The X-Files tapped into that feeling that something's going on behind the scenes. And that feeling, well, it's even stronger now than it was in the 90s.
It's like they predicted our current obsession with conspiracies, that blurring of fact and fiction.
In a way, they did. And that's why the X-Files still holds up. It's not just nostalgia. It's this deeper exploration of our desire to understand the world, even the parts that scare us.
Even the parts we can't explain.
Exactly. And it wasn't just, tapping into the anxieties of the time.
Right.
It was something deeper, I think. Something about us as humans.
Like that fear of the unknown, the things that go bump in the night, but updated, like for the modern world.
Exactly. It's in our DNA, isn't it? Every culture has its folklore, its myths about things we can't explain. The X-Files just, put it under a microscope.
Give it a scientific twist.
Yeah.
And this document, it talks about how the X-Files really understood how to use the internet to connect with fans.
Oh, they were ahead of their time.
Right. Like this was before social media even.
Yeah. Way before. Think about it. Online message boards, dedicated websites. Fans were dissecting every episode, building these theories.
It was a whole new level of engagement. Like they were basically inventing online fandom as we know it.
I think that's fair to say. All those fan theories we see now, those online communities, they owe a lot to what the X-Files started.
So it wasn't just a show, it was this whole interactive experience.
Exactly. And it made the show even richer, brought people together.
Speaking of episodes, we talked about Jose Chung's From Outer Space earlier, which, wow. This document mentions Bad Blood and the postmodern Prometheus as, like, standouts.
Oh, they're classics. Bad Blood. It's hilarious.
I know.
That's so funny. But also creepy. It uses unreliable narrators, right? So you see the same events from both Mulder and Scully's perspectives.
So you don't know who to believe.
Right. And it makes you question everything you see. And the postmodern Prometheus, that's a really interesting one.
What's that one about?
It's inspired by Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it explores those themes. Creation, responsibility, what it means to be human. But it's also, weirdly heartwarming.
It's like they could take these big ideas, these philosophical questions, and still make them entertaining.
Exactly. They weren't afraid to have fun, to be playful with the genre, but there was always that intelligence, that depth underneath.
So it wasn't just about chasing monsters.
No, it was about what those monsters represented, about us. And of course, you can't talk about the X-Files without talking about Duchovny and Anderson.
Mulder and Scully. I mean, their chemistry was off the charts.
They were brilliant. Duchovny, as Mulder, he had that intensity, that drive to uncover the truth no matter the cost.
And Anderson, as Scully, she was the skeptic.
Yeah.
But you could see her starting to question, to wonder.
That push and pull between them, it was just so compelling. They were both so good at conveying, the subtext, the unspoken stuff.
It was in the looks, the pauses.
Exactly. It made their performances so nuanced, so layered. And they both won awards for it, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Golden Globes, Emmys.
Yeah.
They deserved every one.
It's interesting because they could have easily fallen into those stereotypes,
Right.
the believer, the skeptic.
Right.
But they brought so much depth to the characters, so much humanity. You cared about them, even when they were dealing with the craziest stuff.
And this show didn't shy away from the dark stuff either.
No, it definitely went there. But it always felt grounded, Even when it was about aliens or conspiracies, there was this emotional core.
Like you could relate to it on a human level. even if you had never encountered a monster in your life.
Right. It was about fear, hope, that search for meaning in a world that doesn't always make sense, about questioning authority, facing the unknown. Those are things we all deal with.
And those themes, they're timeless, right? They resonate even more today, I think.
I agree. We're still trying to figure those things out. Who do we trust? What's the truth? What happens when everything we thought we knew turns out to be wrong?
It's like the X-Files was asking those questions before we even knew we needed to ask them.
And that's why it's still so relevant. It's not just a show. It's a reflection of who we are, how we grapple with the world around us.
It's about that search for truth, even when it's scary, even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when it makes you question everything you thought you knew.
And it gave us these amazing characters, like beyond Mulder and Scully, the lone gunman, Skinner.
Oh, they were fantastic. Each one brought something unique. The lone gunmen with their conspiracy theories.
They were like the original internet nerds, weren't they?
Totally. But they had this heart, you know? They genuinely wanted to help Mulder, even if their methods were a little out there.
And Skinner, that guy was a mystery wrapped in an enigma. You never knew where he stood, but he always had Mulder and Scully's backs.
He walked that line, didn't he? Between his duty to the FBI and, I think, a growing respect for what Mulder and Scully were doing.
He was a skeptic, but you could see him starting to believe.
Yeah. And then you had Krychek. Oh, man,
I
Krychek.
talk about untrustworthy.
So slippery. One minute he's helping Mulder, the next he's betraying him. You never knew what he was going to do.
Talk about adding to the paranoia.
Yeah.
It's like, who can you trust when even the people on your side might be working against you?
That was part of the brilliance of the X-Files. It kept you guessing.
It's like they took those Cold War spy stories, but with aliens and monsters instead of communists.
Exactly. It was familiar but twisted, just enough to make it unsettling.
And they did it with such style. The music, the visuals, the pacing.
Oh, the music. Mark Snow, he created something really special.
Those opening notes. So iconic.
Instant chills. It sets the mood perfectly. Mysterious, suspenseful, just a little bit creepy.
Yeah. And it's stuck with us, hasn't it? Even if you haven't seen this show, you probably know that theme.
It's become part of our culture, and it all came together to create this immersive experience. Like, you weren't just watching the X-Files, you were stepping into that world.
A world where anything felt possible.
Where the truth was always out there, but just out of reach.
And we're still searching for that truth, aren't we? In our own lives, I mean.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age with all the information overload, the fake news, the conspiracies.
It's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
And the X-Files tapped into that. That feeling of uncertainty, like, are we being told the whole story? What's really going on behind the scenes?
It gave us permission to question everything, to be skeptical, to look for those hidden truths.
And that's a message that's more relevant now than ever, I think.
I agree. The X-Files, it wasn't just a show, it was a cultural phenomenon. It changed the way we look at the world, the way we think about truth, about power, about ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought. How did this show, born in the 90s, speak to the anxieties of that time, and how does it continue to resonate with us today? It's a question worth thinking about.
It really is. We've talked about the production, the impact, the legacy of the X-Files, but the real answers, they're personal. It's about how we connect with the characters, the stories, the themes that still feel so relevant in our world.
So go back, revisit those episodes, explore those dark corners, those moments of brilliance. Maybe you'll find your own truth hidden in those X-Files. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep searching.